Welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. Here's your host, Scott Cowan.
So, everybody, this is Scott Cowan. I'm your host with the Exploring Washington State podcast. And today my guest is Ryan Christensen. Ryan, welcome to the show.
What's up, Scott? How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. And so today we're going to talk about a topic that I know nothing about, which is hiking and climbing, which is why Ryan's here. Ryan's going to share some thoughts on Washington State hikes and climbs. So, Ryan, why don't we just jump in and tell me what are your three favorite hikes around Washington?
Alrighty. So thanks for having me on, Scott. I super appreciate it. I'd say Heliotrope Trail. That's on Mount Baker up north. Panorama Point on Mount Rainier. Stunning like views out to the south of Washington, all the way up to the peak on a clear day, right next to the Nisqually Glacier. You can hear like the ice chunking off and cleaving and falling down into the valley. Super cool. Obviously a little scary. It's definitely a safe day hike. And then one of my favorites, it's really hard to get into, but the enchantments just out of Leavenworth in the Alpine Lakes Wilderness area. Stunning. That's known for their goats, the Alpine Lakes. There's, 20 lakes up there. Some of the most beautiful vistas, and it's really protected by a lottery. So it's hard to get in there, although you can do a day hike all the way through. But luckily last year I spent 7 days up there with my friends, and it was stunning.
Yeah. Tell us about that, because I did see on Facebook, so it must be true. I did see that your friends got the lottery and you went along with them. How does that lottery work? I mean, what is entailed?
At a certain time of year, which, forgive me, it's been a hot minute since I've applied myself, but you apply through the Forest Service, I believe, website. You make application on an online form. They receive it, and then they give you lottery based on the size of your trip as well as the duration of the trip. So that lottery is very, very difficult to get a hold of. It's very similar to like a bear tag or a moose tag if you're into hunting or something of that sort. And so you're very, very lucky if you get one. And even more so if it's over 3 days. They're incredibly rare to get a hold of. It was a really great thing. I feel fortunate. I felt like I should have paid my friends, just to get on that. Luckily, I got the invite, and we facilitated a wonderful trip. You actually go in one side of the mountain range, and you come out on the other side. So a lot of people know of the Kolchak Lake hike. So Kolchak is one entrance, and then you have Snow Lakes on the other entrance or exit of this route. And if you're on any of the Facebook groups, Kolchak Lake is one of the sites that is absolutely blowing up. In fact, a lot of the local media, Q13, they've talked about in the springtime here, how post-COVID, everybody's just trying to get outside, and the roads are just lined up, and you're not supposed to park on either side of this Forest Service road. It's actually getting very hard for search and rescue to get up there with their larger vehicles. And so I'm not sure, you live in that area. I'm not sure if they shut that down at all, but I know they were threatening to do so.
I don't know. I don't know, because pre-recording you mentioned that when you just climbed Mount Hood, that there wasn't search and rescue available down in Oregon. So I don't know here in Washington, because my idea of a hike is my stairs up to my house. So that's bad. So the enchantments, you went for 7 days, and how long of a trip was that from one lake to the other? What are we talking about for those of us that haven't?
Are you talking like distance wise, elevation?
Yeah. What's the distance? What's the distance? And then what is the
miles round trip? So, you got to think about on hikes. Okay. Usually hikes are loops. So you go out to somewhere and you come back the same way. But if you're going to do a throughput hike, that's when you're going to enter in one place and leave on the other. That way you have to logistically figure out, hey, whose car stays here? Whose car goes there? How are we going to, trolley people back and forth after the long, excruciating hike? So it's 18 miles. I want to say, I don't know. I'm going to probably mess up the stat. I'm not much of a statistician for hikes and stuff, but I would say it's probably like 3,500, 4,000 feet of elevation gain up to what's called Asgard Pass. It's literally a mountain pass that you hike up. And soon as you go up this, we had a mama goat and a baby goat tracking with us this whole scramble up this area. It's fairly dangerous. So if people are listening and they're going to be doing this, definitely do your research. Stay to the left-hand side of the gully and watch out for snow bridges. So if you're going up the snow, the creek runs underneath the snow, and in the springtime, you can step on that snow and fall through. And there have been people that have died there. So just heads up to people. It's not normal, but a lot of people come unprepared in that area without knowing much about snow traversing or snow travel.
So you guys were there for seven nights.
Yeah. I think we cut it short down to 6. We had the permit for 7. The mosquitoes at Snow Lake were ruthless. They were like hummingbirds. And obviously not hummingbirds, but there's brown recluse spiders. And so we were like, you know what, let's just truck it out. And then as we trucked it out on the last day, coming out to the Snow Lakes entrance, we ran across a grizzly bear of all things. You don't see grizzly bears in your area very much. And she was uphill of us. And luckily, there were some people that were just not afraid of her. And so we left very quickly, and they stayed around to take pictures. So I felt very confident we were going to get out safely.
Because you only have to run faster than one other person.
And judging by their Converse and skinny jeans, I felt pretty comfortable with that.
Pretty comfortable. Awesome. So heliotrope.
Yeah. So heliotrope is a flower. It's like a purple flower in the springtime. Right now in June, they're absolutely full force and effect up this entire ridge. So we're talking Mount Baker, right? Fairly away from a large majority of people and population, but still close enough for a drive. You get on the trail, it's a very standard trail through the wilderness, the forest, the mosses, the muddy trails, the logs falling over, creeks that you walk over, and then the rocks you jump across, these little streams, and then eventually you kind of break through the tree line. And as you're going up this ridge, these heliotrope flowers are everywhere. And think of it like just a very straight ridge. So if you're looking in front of you, just looking straight uphill, like at a 45-degree slope, the rock kind of just cleaves and cuts this glacier that's flowing downhill slowly. So there's a glacier on your left, a glacier on your right, and then this beautiful ridge. It's just lit up with these spring flowers, and you can smell them. They're just very, very aromatic, and they're just beautiful. And you can see the top of Mount Baker. As you turn around, you see the valleys, and I'm not sure what that effect is, but like as the ridges go in distance, they get lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter until it kind of fades out into the horizon. It's one of the most beautiful trails. If you guys aren't really super active, but you want a good challenge, you can choose to go as far as you want, or, in any part of that trail is just stunning. So no lottery needed for that. You might need I think it's a Forest Service pass or Discovery Pass probably there. And you park, you go do the trip, check it out on WTA.org, Washington Trails Association, or download the All Trails app. That's All Trails, and heliotrope. I think it's HELIOTROPE, heliotrope, something of that sort.
I'll find it and I'll put it in the show notes below so people can look at it. So how long does that hike take? I mean, if you're going to go all the way up to see the flowers?
I mean, again, that's been a couple of years. I think it's been 4 or 5 years since I've been up there, but I want to say that would take you, depending on your ability, 4 to 6 hours round trip. So it's a day. Okay. It's a day hike, and you don't have to get started super early. You could, get up to the trailhead at 9 to noon or something and get back still with sun. So actually, depending on what time of year, but springtime is the best time of year for that hike specifically. And then lastly, I love Panorama Point, which is a point on Mount Rainier. It's about halfway between the observatory there at Paradise. If you've ever been there, that's stunning enough. Then you head up what's called the Skyline Trail, and you go basically a quarter of the way to Camp Muir, which, let me just clarify, Camp Muir is halfway up Rainier. So you're a quarter of the way up halfway. So what is that? 1/8 to the top. So it's a hike, but it's not that far. It will definitely get you breaking into sweat most of the year due to the elevation. It is in snow. August time, you're going to be mostly on dirt. Late July, you'll probably be on dirt there as well. It's a very well-maintained trail. There's actually an asphalt trail halfway up. And Panorama Point has this really cool latrine or bathroom. I know that doesn't sound like the coolest thing you'd see on a mountain, but let me tell you, it's like kind of like a cottage. So they've done all this like rock work, the mortared, and like this old, like really cool, like wooden door, and like it's rounded top, and you like push in, as like a solar light in it, and it's super cool. Like you can open up the door after using the restroom, and the clouds are below you, and you can see like other mountain peaks. It's just an experience. I mean, as a bathroom, it's a bathroom, right? But like if you step out of the bathroom, obviously it's Panorama Point. You can see everywhere. You can see Goat Rocks Wilderness. Yeah, but this is cool. Like if you're in Instagram or posting images and stuff, it's just a cool. I don't know, just a cool perspective. You don't normally see pictures like that. You usually see people in yoga pants and like flat billed hats with brewery stuff going on. So we like to have some fun, and there's nothing wrong with everybody enjoying the outdoors. But I'm just saying that's a little bit of a fun hike. Just about anyone can do. But don't get it wrong. You're going to get your butt kicked. You're going to have some sweat. Your legs are going to get stretched out, and weather moves in quick there. So just be aware that you can get caught in some nasty weather pretty quickly, even if it's a nice day.
Now, is that a pretty steep hike? Is there a lot of elevation gain there, or is it more of a gentle? Is that the part of the mountain that's kind of
gentle? So it's kind of in between those two areas. So it kind of rolls uphill. So it's steep in some areas. It's not like you couldn't push like a baby stroller up there, but you could push the baby stroller halfway up there. So that'd be 1/16 of the way up Mount Rainier for all you mathematicians out there following along.
There we go. Great. Now everyone needs to learn a little bit on an episode. You just learned that you can push a stroller 1/16 of the way up Mount Rainier. All right. So because this is not my wheelhouse, and I'm going to guess that some of the people that may be listening to this are accomplished hikers and accomplished climbers. Myself is not included in that list. What's the difference between hiking and climbing? I mean, there's got to be when does something change from being a hike to being a climb?
Okay. And I'd throw backpacking in there as well. Right. So you have hiking, which backpacking falls into like the hiking. So you have a day hike, or you're backpacking, which would mean like you're taking your camping stuff with you, your tent, your food, your kitchen, if you will, on your back. So that's backpacking. And then backpacking and hiking, when it goes into climbing, maybe this is not necessarily a technical thing, but I would say anytime that you're required to have an ice axe or crampons or a helmet, or you're going on a rope, because you got to think climbing can be divided into different types of surfaces. So you can be on snow, you could be on glaciers, you could be on rock. So any of those types of three activities would be climbing. So let's say Panorama Point. It's on a mountain. You'd think it could be a climb. I'm going to climb up there, as our normal vernacular would say, right? But the reality is you can just do it with hiking boots and some layers. And there's no reason for you to have an ice axe. Even in the middle of winter, you're just fine going up there. Don't get me wrong. When I say just fine, it doesn't mean it's not dangerous and it's not inherently risky. But I'm saying from a climbing perspective, it's a snowfield. There's no crevasses. You're not going to fall into an area and get hurt or injured. Where an ice axe, which is, think of it like it's what you see in the movies. People are shoving them into ice walls and stuff like that. That's what anchors you to the surface.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have summited Mount Rainier, and what other mountains have you summited? And they don't have to just be in Washington. Mount
Eleanor is actually a really good hike, and it is in the Olympics. So I've done that. Done Mount St. Helens. I've done Mount Adams a couple times. Recently just did Mount Hood. I've done Mount Shasta. Rainier I attempted 4 times, got up on the 5th time. Like I said, the weather there can be really, really crazy. I've climbed Mount Baker. I've gone down to Africa and climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. I've done the Three Sisters in South Sister. Yeah, I got quite a few. I've done some stuff in Switzerland, so got a lot of experience. But your knees don't move.
I did not know that you'd climbed in Switzerland.
I love Switzerland.
I did not know
It's
that.
beautiful.
So even though you may not answer Washington State, what was of all of those climbs, what's the most memorable?
Yeah, so I mean, growing up here in Pierce County my whole life, and growing up looking at the mountain and being into hiking, I think all of us Washingtonians can relate that the grandness and the majesticness of Mount Rainier is something that captivates us all. We've got terms like, oh, the mountain's out, or man, she looks pretty. Or we've all woken up on one of those fall mornings and we look and we see the shadow of Mount Rainier going across the clouds. And or if you're in different areas, you see the sunset on Mount Rainier. And it's just so iconic. That always captivated my heart from a very young age. And so I saved up many times, like I said, 4 times to train for a year at a time, pay the climbing services, which are non-refundable. It doesn't matter about weather. You pay them, you show up, and if you're getting gale force winds, it's just how it happens. So Mount Rainier is the most memorable. I was over like a 7-year window, and it just took I think the mountain takes a lot of heart to climb. If you're lucky enough to get good weather, fitness can get you there. But the reality is most of the time, it's not just fitness. It's heart, determination, perseverance. I have asthma. And so cold weather really shrinks my esophagus and gives me bronchitis nearly instantly. And so I ended up climbing Rainier with a lung infection I had no idea about, because it's already hard for me to climb. So when I got to the top, it was very hard to climb. When I got down, it was still as difficult to breathe as the top. And then I went to the doctor. I was like, Doc, I can't breathe. My rescue inhaler is doing nothing. My other inhalers are doing nothing. Do I need to be put on something else? And I had like 40% lung capacity, so 60% damaged lungs out of some stuff. And so it was even harder for me. So when I say it takes heart, it takes lungs too. So when you go up to the top, it's, as many of you know, the air gets thinner and it's you don't get as much oxygen. So, but damn it, I wanted it. So I was ready to turn around. Actually, I got to tell you this. This speaks to the volumes of guides, outdoor enthusiasts, as well as like people that are going to push you in your life. Because when you leave Camp Muir, which is halfway, and you go to the upper mountain, it's very lunar. Like there are literally ice blocks larger than most commercial buildings resting on each other and melting and just doing their stuff. It does not look like anywhere else on the planet when you're on the upper portion of Mount Rainier. And so you do not see rocks until you get to the crater rim, because you got to remember, all these Cascade volcanoes, or a majority of them, are active volcanoes. So normally mountains smell. There's sulfur coming out of the top. There's noxious gases. So you actually smell the volcano being active. Us here at sea level, we look up and it's like, oh, it's a mountain. But you got to think at the crater rim, it's a crater. It's mountains that are already blown up. And so like the crater rim is rock. And that rock, and above that, even in the middle of winter, it's always, always, always exposed, because the top of Mount Rainier is warm to the touch. It's literally warm. It's a volcano with magma in it, And so, you do not see rocks until you get to the top of Mount Rainier, essentially. So, just wanted to we were stuck in a whiteout, 50-mile-an-hour winds. Absolutely frozen, literally sheets of ice on either side of our bodies and backpacks, and you're moving very slow at that time. And I looked down and I was like, I yanked on the rope, and I was like, no, I got nothing left. It's just not today. And I looked down, and you got this big knot of gear, you're attached to a rope, you got all these carabiners. And the guide in front of me yanked again, and I yanked back. I was like, "Hey, you son of a gun! You listen to me. I'm done. I'm done. I don't. I'm accepting defeat. This is 2 days into this damn thing. I am cold. I literally had already peed my pants because my hands were so cold. I could not, undo my pants. And I said, I am done. And I looked down. I put my head on my ice axe just to take a breath, i.e., I couldn't breathe at all. And that son of a gun, he whipped the rope, right, and put some energy in the rope. And I looked down, and this big knotted ball of ice and stuff and carabiners just hit me straight in the face, busted my lip. And I was just mad. All of a sudden, I just had more energy. I was like, I'm going to tell this guy. I'm going to tell him what's up, And, just a young guy's perspective after being challenged and just defeated. And I'm not joking. You couldn't see 6 feet in front of you. And so I turned the corner. I stomped up there. I was gonna show him, and I'm mad. I'm angry, and it's and all of a sudden I hear tink 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 tink, and I look down and my feet are on rocks. And so I was really willing to turn around. I'm talking 17 steps away from the summit, not knowing that you're that close. And he goes, no way. I don't care. He didn't mean to hit me in the face with that. I had a bloody lip, right. And I walked up there. I have a picture on Mount Rainier. I got blood on my lip, and I'm like, oh, I did it, a Rocky Balboa moment. And so I just want to, it's a good reminder, a good analogy. You don't know how close you are to the other side of your breakthrough, and keep pushing forward.
So you were literally 17 steps away from the summit.
Yeah. And
wow.
So that just reminded me, you need people in your life to push you,
And that was your fifth attempt.
That's like $12,000 into climbing fees and permits and gear and practice stuff. Yeah, 5 years of effort. And you're not getting any healthier or any skinnier as you're getting older, So it gets harder. We all know how that works.
I totally know how that works. So the other 4 times you didn't summit.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate you bringing that up. Yeah.
Sure. Happy to bring that up. I'm sure though that you have something during at least one of those other 4 climbs that was memorable.
Yeah.
And worthy of sharing.
So 2 of those times just a little insight into my personal life. I have a family member, quote unquote family member, like an adopted aunt, if you will, and she unfortunately passed away from breast cancer. So a lot of my motive for climbing was to raise money with the Climb to Fight Breast Cancer. So I did raise money for that and climbed Mount Rainier. And actually, I climbed with Denise Whitaker. She's a newscaster, and her camera crew. And so that was really memorable. The whole Whitaker family is iconic in the history of Mount Rainier and the Ashford area, which is a small town, obviously outside of Mount Rainier near the entrance. And so we hit it off. She and I have stayed in contact over the years. Just a wonderful person. I have the most amount of respect, and the organization as a whole is just very meaningful. And it reminded me that the journey, not the destination, is often, what you're experiencing, what you're going for. The people get summit fever, they make bad decisions, they get injured. A successful climb isn't getting to the top. A successful climb is getting home.
And that's a great way of looking at it, actually. Yeah.
Just don't ask people on the way up when they're coming down, hey, did you make it to the top? It's not the best way to help a defeated person. There's a lot of emotional stuff going into that.
So at any given time, I think climbing Rainier, there's a window of time during the year that you do this, correct? So you just don't go.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I don't recommend not having the guide service. There's plenty of people. I've seen people get hit in the leg with a rock and their boots explode and they break their leg. And, you're literally anchored to the side of Mount Rainier for a good 5-hour window. And if you get hypothermia and stuff, that's all on you. So, it's not really an area you mess with. With that being said, more people get injured or die from Paradise, which is the parking lot, the observatory lodge, and up to Camp Muir because they're not prepared. They don't understand. They think it's a hike. it turns into a climb where you're supposed to have some gear. Maybe you can do it without gear, of course, but the weather changes so quickly. You can have a 70-degree day with not a cloud in the sky, and the mountain will literally create its own vortexes, its own pressure systems, its own clouds. You get stuck in a whiteout in the midst of 5 to 10 minutes. I'm telling you, you'll never see a cloud. You look all the way to let's say to the Pacific Ocean, to the Columbia, and out to Eastern Washington. And in moments, you can drop 40 to 50 degrees. Winds can increase 40 to 50 miles an hour, and visibility is gone. So that's,
wow.
If anyone's listening, think they want to do Camp Muir, take it seriously and be prepared. Take a GPS or a camp app.
So when it's hiking season, when it's climbing season for Rainier, how many is it crowded up there? How many people are up there? Is it a lonely thing? Is it you and your guide, your party? But do you see people going up and coming down?
So very similar to life and success in general. The higher accolades and performance, usually less people are there, but the people that are there are more like each other. I always tell an analogy, you go to camp, you go to Ashford, right? Let's say you start out in like Tacoma, lots of very, very diverse amount of people, interest at sea level. Okay. And then you go up to like Puyallup, people start to get a little more similar, but very different, right? Then you get out to Eatonville, not as many people in diversity, start to get like types of people out there. Now you get out to Ashford, there's less people, but they're definitely more similar. You could definitely say, oh, there's hey, there's a type of person that enjoys this type of lifestyle. Now you get into national park. Okay, well, there's basically 2 types of people. There's people that are going to come there, take pictures, right? Check in on Facebook or Instagram. And then there's people that are hiking, right? And then once you realize that, let's say May through August, maybe September, that's kind of your window of time to enjoy Rainier. Once you leave the parking lot in Paradise and you're climbing up towards Camp Muir, there's only so many spots and to camp. And most people for Mount Rainier make it a multi-day trip. And so you're hiking as fast as you can to go get yourself a spot. So you're competing with everyone around you. And then when you get there, you set up your tent, then now you have the camaraderies. Everybody's just hanging out there, getting some rest. You go to sleep and you wake up at, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and you get climbing in the middle of the night, an alpine start. The temperatures are colder. The mountain's frozen, so there's less chance for ice fall, less chance for rock fall. You have your headlamps on, and now, as soon as you leave Camp Muir and you're on the glaciers, you're crawling on the crevasses, you're going up the ice bridges, it's really crazy because you shift. They're no longer your competition. Your competition turns into your support system. And your team, you're only as fast as the slowest person on your team, right? And so it's very interesting, the perspective there. And you're no longer competing, you're encouraging each other and trying to support each other. And not to get super Tony Robbins, but I think it's a really good approach in life as well. As at a certain point in your careers and your lives and your hobbies, everybody shifts from being a competitor to, a supporter. And I think that's a really important thing for us as a community to do for each other. So everybody's on their own journey,
So 2 questions on Rainier, and then we'll move on. Camp Muir, can you describe that? Because in my vision, I'm thinking a camp, there's stuff there, and I think I might be wrong.
After you leave Panorama Point, there's one last spot to get water. It's called Pebble Creek, and that's at the base of the Muir snowfield. And so what's so dangerous not dangerous, just like it has a mirage effect, is you can see Camp Muir, which is literally a ridge, like a little saddle, and there's a snowfield from here till forever, it seems like, and you just chug along slowly up this hill, and you think that you've made, you might go a mile, and Camp Muir doesn't look any closer. So it's just this ridge on Mount Rainier, and it's a safe area. It's away from rock fall, and but it's also precariously positioned right at the edge of these glaciers. You look over the edge, and 1,500 feet down, the glacier is there and stuff. So, you don't want to be walking around without a headlamp at night, but at the same time, it's quite safe. They have climber's bivouac there, meaning there are, like the restrooms there. There's predefined camping sites with rocks stacked around and walls to protect the camps from the wind. Can get really, really hard up there. There is a ranger station up there as well. So it's actually fairly well developed. There's solar panels up there. There's water. There's definitely a porta potty. But for most people, if you're not climbing with a guide, the guide has a bunkhouse, so you don't have to pack your tents and the ropes and all that stuff. They just keep that up there. So it's a lot less weight and it's a lot more doable to climb Mount Rainier when you're working with a guide service.
Okay. And then how fast can somebody climb Rainier?
The record is some ridiculous thing. It doesn't even make sense. This is like ultramarathoner of ultramarathoners. They'd put someone that's won the Boston Marathon, it seems like, to complete shame. I think it's something like 4 to 5 hours up and down. Like that's
really?
It's insane. It's insane. You can Google it and probably put a link down below the show at the end for that person. That's fascinating. Okay. I can't comprehend that. I don't know how that works at all. I don't know. I mean, when I summited Rainier, I was quite fit, quite young, and we still did it in 2 days. And I don't know. It's just mind blowing.
So when you come back down, do you stay at Camp Muir the next? Do you stay at Muir, or do you go all the
3-day trips? So basically, a 2-day trip would be the first day you go from Paradise to Camp Muir. You stay, you wake up in the middle of the night, and then you get up to the top by sunrise. You turn around, you come down to Camp Muir, you grab the rest of your stuff since you don't have to carry everything to the top, and then you get all the way out. Or the 3-day trip, which I found a lot more success on. All 4 times that I failed was a 2-day trip. The 3-day trip is you go up to Camp Muir, and then the next day you wake up at a normal time, and then you go about 1,500 more feet up the mountain to what's called Ingraham Flats, and you set up camps on a glacier there, and you stay there, and then you get up, and then you do the push-up, and then you come all the way down the next day. Which is like, I don't know, you burn like 10 to 12,000 calories in that day. It's an 18-hour day. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So the other, like Baker and St. Helens, and how are they? I mean,
yeah. So
you joked before we hit the record button that, St. Helens is half the mountain it used to be,
it's beautiful.
That was kind of
St. Helens is astounding. If anyone wants to start to get into mountaineering or climbing mountains or summiting, it is a non-technical hike. It's like just a hike. It's not a climb. You could bring an ice axe if you really wanted to. There's a winter route. There's a summer route. The summer route is much easier. The winter route is more direct and takes a bit more energy. I've climbed it both. Looking into the crater, be careful when you get to the top. There are cornices, meaning there's snow that gets blown over like a wave of water, if you will, but it's frozen, and sometimes you see cornices melt off and slough off into the crater. So you got to stay away from that crater rim. But looking down at the massive power and force, and obviously is it Spirit Lake down there, I want to say, and all the forest that's still recovering, it's just massively inspiring. So if you want to check out a hike, I would definitely check out Mount St. Helens, and then twofold, in that same area, just a little farther southeast, if I will, Mount Adams is down there. Mount Adams is a non-technical climb on the South Spur, which is called the Lunch Counter Route. And that's usually the first mountain most people will do. They'll do like Mount Eleanor, which is a hike. They'll do Mount St. Helens. And then for the bigger climbs, is, I want to say Adams like 12,300, 12,400, something like that. So it's a 2-day climb. Usually some people do it in 1 day, but most people do it in 2 days. Adams is a great, 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 great place to get some mountain experience. And just to let you know, every 1,000 feet you go up, you generally lose like 3 to 7 degrees. So if it's 70 degrees down here at sea level, and then, 12,000 feet, you're generally 40 to 50 degrees temperature-wise colder no matter what. So, very rarely do you have a day on a summit that's above 30 to 45 degrees, best case. That's without wind chill. So
that's not. What about Baker? How is Baker?
It's glaciated. It's usually guided. That's my first non-guided glaciated trip. You definitely want to do that in 2 days. That's a more advanced mountain. That's not a mountain someone wants to try. So if you guys are not familiar with it, you can join. There's plenty of climbing outfitters, or you can join the Mountaineers, which is a group of outdoor enthusiasts that are committed to safety, education, and exploring the wilderness here in Washington and in the whole world. It's a worldwide organization.
So you just stole my next question, which is how to get started. So thank you for answering that in advance. Appreciate that. Yeah. So here's a question I hadn't prepared you for. You're going to go on one more hike. You get only one more hike. It's got to be in Washington State. What's it going to be? You never get to hike again.
I would. Gosh, that's good. That's good. Okay, so never get to hike again. I would spend some time in the North Cascades. And specifically, I'd probably do, and I haven't yet done it, but there's a hike that is on Mount Shuxton. And that's one of the most photographed mountains in the world. It's just generally beautiful. I haven't really researched it, but I've seen pictures and always wanted to spend some time in that area.
Okay. I've not heard of that mountain.
It's pretty popular. Glacier Peak is up there as well. There's a couple more I want to climb. I haven't done those yet. So those two are still on my bucket list.
Those are on the bucket list. Okay. All right. I'm going to shift gears to something completely out of the state because I want to know, and it's out of the country. Kilimanjaro. Yeah. How was that? I know I know somebody else that has completed Kilimanjaro as well, so I'm curious to contrast your experience with theirs.
Just to set the stage, I was like 23 at that time. Now I'm turning 34 next week, and for my personal story, when I was 22, I had my tonsils taken out. The doctors accidentally nicked my jugular. I lost all the blood in my body. I went up to many hospitals in the area and was pronounced dead, had all the blood transfused in my body. So I had just gone through a really traumatic part of my life. You said, if you had one last hike, I felt that way before, right? And I didn't want to die without living. And so I said, screw this, man, you get one chance in life. I'm going to go to Kilimanjaro. And so there's two ways you can do Kilimanjaro. You can just climb Kilimanjaro with a guide service, right? Or you could do the guide service climb plus the safari, essentially. So I was like, I'm going to go all out. And flew through Amsterdam. That's when I spent some time there in Europe backpacking and in the Switzerland area. I flew all the way down to Tanzania, and we did the safari as well as the climb. It's the most alive I've ever felt. Being on a mountain and going to 19,000 feet is also lunar. It feels out of this world. The stars from 19 or 18,000 feet with no lights around you for a couple of countries, it seems like, away. To see the Milky Way and to feel like you touch it, to see, like we've all seen Lion King, like Pride Rock exists. I'm not sure if you know that. We took a hot air balloon ride for sunrise over the Serengeti during the Great Migration. Like, you can't write books like this. This is so iconic life. And it is absolutely a beautiful moment in my life. And I hope that sharing the story that any of you with the means to go figure it out, it's not as expensive as you think it is. Many of us have car payments that could make us afford the trip. Get out there and live your best life, because one day you're not going to have the chance to, and we're not getting any younger. And it's a walk, it's a trek, if you will. Just about anybody's fitness level can do it. It's over 7 to 9 days traditionally. And it is, they have porters, meaning that they're community members that are climbers. They take a majority of your stuff. It is a gourmet climbing experience, if you will. It is culturally eye-opening. You're absolutely nearly guaranteed to cry at some point. It's an emotional achievement. It's, you get to see a part of the world you probably have never seen before. And the stories that you'll get, those memories will last you a lifetime. Even on your deathbed, you'll be definitely proud that you made that decision to do it.
Interesting, because you're recounting your climb very parallel to the other person I know that did Kilimanjaro. The only variable is when they did Kilimanjaro was right before 9/11, and they were stuck in Africa afterwards. So they couldn't come home for a little while. So they spent more time, not on the mountain, but not being able to come home. So that was kind of the difference. So to wrap up, is there anything else that we could talk about with hiking and climbing in Washington State? What I think we did a nice job. Well, we being you did a great job of sharing your experiences. Getting started, if somebody wants to get started, you mentioned mountaineers. There's what was the other Washington Trails?
Yeah, so there's Washington Trails Association. So WTA is the acronym for that. So they have an app as well as a great website, which gives you, hikes in your proximity. So, if you're going to go into Northwest Washington or Northeast or Southeast, they kind of break it up into areas. They show you the challengingness, if you will, of the hike, strenuousness, expectations for how to get there. That's a good way, what to bring. So I definitely recommend that. The All Trails app is absolutely awesome. You've got the Strata app as well, or Strava app for tracking your activity. Most of those do like GPS routes, and so they track like where you're at. They track how many calories you burned if you have a smartwatch or a heart rate monitor. Mailbox Peak, we never really went there, but Mailbox Peak is what legends are made of. There's 2 trails there. It's 4 miles up, 4 miles down, but it's like 4,000 feet of elevation gain. It's a perfect training hike if you're going to start any mountains. The Old Trail is a direct trail. They call it a sheep trail. So it's like roots and rocks and like muddy, and you just like really climb up. It's not like a maintained traverse, which is like where you do switchbacks. It just kind of goes directly up there. I just did that a couple weeks back. It was awesome. And so I would start in those 2 things, but the Mountaineers is a wonderful organization if you are looking at get into mountaineering at a more serious level and you want to be safe in the outdoors. There's also quite a few Facebook groups. So I always say, start there. You're going to find a community of people. It doesn't matter if you're single, divorced, married, family, whatever point of life you're in, there's other people that are, probably at your similar journey and want to explore that wilderness a little bit more too.
Awesome. One question about Mailbox Peak. Do you know why it was named that, and how did the mailbox get up there?
I don't know. I don't know the history behind that, but there's now 2 mailboxes at the top. There's literally 2 mailboxes, and they people. I think sometimes have put letters in there as farewell letters to loved ones that have been passed. Though, I think isn't there an Explore Washington State sticker on the? There was. Right?
There was, and I think what was interesting to me is that. So one of our followers got some of our stickers. They went up there. They put them up. On the mailbox. And then I saw your pictures, and I didn't see our sticker. And it was like 2 weeks later. So I'm like, how thick is this mailbox with stickers now?
Tag that stuff up with stickers. And there's a couple of Rainier beers up there that are unopened for photo ops, and So yeah, it's just right on North Bend, so it looks to the valley, the I-90 corridors below, and.
I'd really like to know the story of
I think it's just someone was like, egotistical or something, and was like, "Oh, you think that's bad? I'm going to take a box with a stick and some concrete, and I'm going to take it up the old trail." There's some people that are.
So literally, it's in concrete.
There's.
Okay, I can't imagine being the person schlepping that stuff up.
But that's what the mountain men and mountain women stories are made out of, right? Like athletic people are so challenge oriented, and prideful of their performance as well. I think I'm probably a little less prideful in those areas. I tend to be like, hey, it's a good hike and you got to sweat a little bit. So, but for all of you who are athletic and competitive, just remember when you're on the trails, when people ask you how much farther to the top, just say you're almost there, just almost there, around the next corner.
Well, what your story on Rainier? The guy, he didn't let you.
Yeah.
He didn't let you give up. I mean, and how happy
Right.
are you that you made it?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a lot of people are
There
like,
you
"Tell
go.
me about it," and people don't ask you, tell you about it if you didn't get to the top. It loses the joy.
So, are you going to do Rainier again? Do you have any plans of doing Rainier
I think
again?
the only thing that's kind of left on my bucket list as far as things I wanted to do with Kilimanjaro under my belt for one of the 7 summits, it's the highest in Africa. I want to go to Russia and climb Mount Elbrus, which is Europe's highest. And so that's something I'm probably thinking 2022. But again, my lungs are pretty damaged from asthma and stuff, so I got to assess that properly.
Okay. Well, I think at this point, this has been awesome. I'm really grateful that you've been on with us, and I'll leave you with the last word.
You guys have a blessed day. Stay safe out there in the outdoors, and remember, you only live once, so go live a great life.
Join us next time for another episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast.